sinner comes before you.
I have sinned.
But you have sinned.
I have sinned. She's a sinner. I know I have sinned.
They make me a sinner.
I have sinned.
I have sinned.
I have sinned.
I have sinned.
Sin.
It's a sin.
You are a sinner.
Deep breath. We got this. Hello, my name is Robbie. On here, I'm Templar Knight. Every person who believes in God but does not go to church has a story why. But whenever two or more people gather in God's name, He is there. So this is church. Welcome. I'm glad that you're here. From Paul's letter to the Romans, all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. The wages of sin is death. And God shows His love for us, that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. This week's target: envy. The desire to have a quality, possession, or other desirable attribute belonging to someone else. I don't know why I keep throwing these dictionary definitions in here. They sometimes are just more confusion. But we all kind of know what envy is. It's when we want something that someone else has. I struggle with envy. I mean, not all the time, but just, every now and then. The problem I have with envy is that it is a very confusing emotion. Envy can take anything good that we have in our lives and make it bad. Like something that we would have thought was great isn't good enough anymore. I'm looking at my notes that I type out on Saturday mornings, and I will often put little comments to myself that just to help me focus. And I typed out, you've been sitting here for an hour, and this is all you figured out. Maybe you're a bit envious of those people who can write gooder than you. Sorry, normally I don't read out my own little personal notes, but I mean, to be fair, Saturday morning me wasn't wrong. The reason I'm struggling with this one is because I'm having a hard time dealing with the difference between greed and envy. So, this is where I post that little meme, several hours later. And I come back to my typing notes. So, we've already talked about greed. Greed is wanting something you don't have and letting that want consume you. Whereas envy is an inward emotion that it attacks us by making us feel sad or even resentful. Envy hits us that instead of allowing us to take joy in someone else's victory or their triumph, it turns that happiness and makes it a frustration. Why is this happening for them, but not for me? I deserve what they got. I try harder than they do, and they're winning. Why am I losing? I spend so much time and effort doing the right things. Why do I struggle so much more than other people do? Sorry, that last one, that's one of mine. See, my mind, I get hung up on what's fair. I get stuck on what's just and what we deserve. I get so focused on everything being this commerce, this exchange of one thing for another. I do this, I receive that. I mean, like, I go to work, I get paid. I'm willing to exchange my time and my abilities for money. I work harder than that person, I make more money than they do. That person works harder than me. They make more than I do, and I can totally accept that. Then I go to the store with that money I just made, and I get groceries and stuff in exchange. And all of that makes sense in my head because it's commerce. I understand it. It's fair. But how about this? I'm driving home from the grocery store, and this little Honda Civic with the fart can exhaust zips by me, just, and that sound, it triggers something in my head. Get 'em. So instead of going the speed limit, I gotta go faster because they're going faster. And less than a half mile down the road, I get pulled over for speeding. And I get written a speeding ticket for going just a little bit over. And now some of that money from my time and my ability and my effort that I'd spent has to go towards paying for this punishment because I didn't follow the rules. Now I can accept that. I can understand that I have to pay the speeding ticket because I was speeding. But as I'm going down the road, I'm not upset because I lost that money. I'm not upset because I did something wrong. I'm upset because, why me? Why didn't the other guy get pulled over? He was going way faster than I was. They got away with going 15 over. I deserve to get away with going 5 over. Why don't they have to pay too? I deserve to keep my income because I was following the rules better than they were. They deserve a ticket. I deserve a warning. But instead of telling myself, you know, bud, you knew better and you did it anyway, this is what happens. Instead, I'm all upset and I'm resentful because the other person got away and I didn't. So I'm mad at them. I'm mad at that other car. I'm mad at the police officer. I'm mad at the semi-truck that wouldn't scoot over and let me merge into the slow lane so I could try and hide a little bit. I'm mad at the police force because it's that time of month and they got their quota to fill. And I'm mad at the government because it's their fault and thanks, Obama. Sorry, that was stupid. But I mean, isn't that the mentality? We always want to blame someone else. Because that's how irrational envy is. Now, with this example that I'm using, it honestly would be kind of silly for me to sit back and be happy for that Honda Civic that got away. But that is the right response. I mean, yeah, it doesn't make any sense talking about it, but I got a punishment that I deserved. That yellow Civic, he got grace. He got something better than what I think he deserved. And it's hard for me to be happy for a stranger when I'm envious of their situation. He got something better than... Why didn't I get that? I mean, man. I mean, to be fair, this is just a story. I didn't actually get pulled over and get a speeding ticket. It's it's a teaching tool. But I mean, right? Okay, so since we're on Twitch, I mean, let's talk about streaming, because as streamers, boy, we got envy. And you will always be able to spot an envious streamer in chat. I like, real talk, you'll be watching someone stream and a hype train starts. And you want to take part in the fun and the excitement. So, you throw a few 100 bits just to participate, because it feels good to support your friends. And while everyone's having fun with the hype train, there's always that one person who they get hit by envy. And the struggle is so bad that they gotta say something stupid, and they're like, wow, this is amazing. I wish this happened in my community. I've never had hype trains like this. I wish this could happen on my streams. I mean, we've seen them. And it always comes from someone who doesn't understand everything that goes into making a good stream, making content. But the most important part that they are missing, they don't realize what it takes to build that community that will support you in these silly little hype train events. So it's easy for them to look at other streamers and let envy take over, and sometimes we just think dumb things. I mean, you ever watch a streamer and think, why don't I have that many viewers? They aren't any better than me. They aren't even doing anything unique. I try so much harder. What are they doing differently that gets them so many people that I'm not doing? That's envy. Plain and simple. Instead of being happy for someone, we are peanut butter and jealous. Instead of being happy for them, we allow envy to beat us down and resent them because they got what we think we deserve. While reading up on this, I heard something from another pastor, and it's too good for me not to share. So, Dr. Galvin Orland, he's got a bunch of stuff on YouTube. It's really solid. And he says something. He says, envy is the opposite of love. Love says, I'm happy when you're happy, and I'm sad when you're sad. Envy says, I'm sad when you're happy, and I'm happy when you're sad. God, I wish I could words like that. There are so many people that we show love to just by sharing in their joy. And we can also show love by sharing in their sadness. And that's one thing I would love to say we're great at here. If one of us is hurting, we all hurting. When one of us is happy, we can all be happy. And envy strikes. Why would we ever want to see someone fail? To fall from a throne that we don't think they deserve. Maybe I'm struggling with envy. Notes. But God tells us to love one another. So how can I show this person love if I'm envious of what they've got? If my envy secretly wants them to fail? If my envy takes joy in watching them struggle? See, this is the problem we have with envy. And just like greed, it never stops. Envy will take what should be your personal heaven, and it will turn it into your personal hell if you let it. So that instead of being happy and content with where you are, we are tormented by where we are not and what we don't have. A prime example of this, if there was ever a place on earth that was close to heaven, it would have been the Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve had everything they could have ever wanted. And only one rule: do not eat the fruit from this tree. The fruit on that tree is for me alone. They literally had everything. They had more. But they wanted the one thing they were told they couldn't have. Was it greed because they wanted more, or was it envy because God had knowledge that they could only get from that tree? And we can't blame society for that one. We can't blame TV commercials or celebrity influencers. We blame the devil. He did this. He introduced sin into our lives so that he could break that bond that we had with God. And he still does it. So how do we fight? Because envy, it's a mindset. So if we're going to fight envy, we have to fight this in our mind. We have to fight back against those thoughts. We have to change the way we see things. You know, in the Bible, it says, John 13, verse 34, "A new commandment I give you, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also are to love one another." So if love is the opposite of envy, let's get them. I like steps. So step 1, call out your envious thoughts. Don't just let them slide by. Now, this is an easy one for me because I talk to myself. You don't have to, but I do. And I will be driving to work in the morning, and I will start dealing with anger or wrath, as we're calling it in this, or greed, or any of these sins, envy, any of them. And I will literally say to myself, Robbie, stop it, bud. And I will say that with all the sins that try and influence and push in on me. Just stop, man. Take a second. Think about where your head's at. And I will stop. And I'll think about all these feelings and these emotions that are starting to grow. And and I'll try and figure out where they're coming from and why. Let me know if this sounds familiar to you, but do any of you ever tell yourself, you're not this person? At least I'm trying not to be. I am trying to be the person God wants me to be. I feel like God put a lot of potential in me. I am not this person. I have to tell myself that more often than I'd like to. But I find that awareness is my biggest ally in all of my battles against sin. And by realizing that I'm sinning, or I'm having sinful thoughts with envy, or any sin really, that awareness gives me the chance to change my thoughts, to have a mental shift from envious thoughts to loving thoughts. It allows me to fight back against sin and all of its influences in my life. Step 2. Against envy, be thankful for where you are at in your life. Be thankful for what you got. Because, as we always say around here, could be worse. But where you're at right now, that's probably someone else's goal. Where I'm at right now, I couldn't have even set a goal this high 3 years ago. Real talk, going back into my past, 3 years ago, I was doing nothing with a faith that I didn't bother sharing. I was just focused on me, keeping my head afloat. And since then, God had me start a ministry. He helped me rebuild and restore my faith. This Bible study became so important to me that I'm now sitting next to a supercomputer I never would have dreamed of having. I've got lights and monitors and cameras and 3 years ago, I would be envious of where I am today. Of all the friends that I've made along this road. Of all the things I've learned and how much my personal faith has grown. Three years ago, I would have loved to be me. With all these great things in my life. And having the mindset that I can also be thankful for the opportunity to fight all the bad things. Because life didn't get any easier. But I became more reliant on God. I wouldn't trade that. Right now, I am blessed to be teaching a series about sin and how to fight it. And when sin fights back, I know that God is watching over me. So I will continue to fight, and God will win. And it's overwhelming for me to think just how much He loves us. So if you're struggling with envy or greed or any sin really, if you want to make a change, there is no better time to start than now. Make a decision to stop, to try harder, to be aware of what you're doing, and stick to it. And if you fall, get back up. Don't let sin keep you chained down. And if this fight against sin becomes too hard for you and you stumble, get back up. And if the devil comes at you harder than you ever thought he could, and he knocks you to the ground, focus your eyes on the Lord and get back up. Don't allow sin to keep you chained down. And if the walk ever becomes too hard, if the weight of the world becomes too much for you to carry, you can't do it alone anymore, know that you're not alone. Reach out. Know that God has gathered a community of people ready and waiting. We go where He sends us. And if you are where He needs us to be, we're just driving down the path, waiting to see that sign that He needs us to turn here. We will come running. And we will walk this path together. See, sin wants to fight and break us from God's path. Sin wants us to feel isolated and alone. You want to fight? I'm ready to fight back. So I'm going to say this prayer aloud. And if you feel like you're ready for a change, if you want to break the cycle of sin in your life, feel free to pray this with me tonight. I was enslaved by my sin. But Jesus broke my chains and freed me from my sins. I am strong enough. I am not going back.
sinner comes before you.
I've sinned.
But you have sinned.
I have sinned. She's a sinner. I know I have sinned.
They make me a sinner. I have sinned. I have sinned.
Sin.
It's a sin.
You are a sinner.